Hello, and welcome to the 2020 Tucson Humanities Festival. My name is Alain-Philippe Durand, and I'm the Dean of the College of Humanities. Thank you for joining us. My esteemed colleagues have prepared these presentations to challenge and inform us, and perhaps help us seek better solutions to the problems we face in the world today. Now, please enjoy this presentation and visit our website, humanitiesfestival.arizona.edu, for the complete event schedule, as well as recordings of this event and future events. The 2020 Tucson Humanities Festival is supported by the Humanities Seminars program. The program offers premier adult education by top university professors from its home here in the College of Humanities.
Hi, I'm Tani Sanchez, a professor in Africana Studies at the University of Arizona. I am going to discuss Us, a film by writer-director Jordan Peele, who uses horror to discuss race, class, and privilege. Us is a film that came out in 2019. It was highly anticipated since the director, just 2 years earlier, had produced the Oscar-winning Get Out, a blockbuster horror film that made commentary about race in America. Us addresses the same subject, but with many different altered emphasis and meanings. Us was also very successful. In its weekend debut, it earned over $70 million, making it the most successful original horror movie debut at that time. It won many recognitions, such as 4 People's Choice Awards. It screened at various film festivals, and it won many Critic Association awards, along with numerous ones from different community organizations. The film became fodder for analysis and cinematic appreciation by academicians, particularly because of its highly metaphorical analysis of class, race, and privilege. Jordan Peele himself said, and I quote, "There are things I'm exploring and trying to say with this film, all related to our duality as human beings, the guilt and sins we bury deep within ourselves. They lie in this territory between the mundane and the absolutely terrifying." Duality is a strong theme. The film follows an African-American family on vacation. The focus is on the wife, Adele. As a child, Adele had an unspoken traumatic experience at a beach amusement park. The experience was so disturbing that her parents took her to a therapist who recommended that they involve her in dance, drawing, and writing so that she could eventually tell her story. On this summer vacation, the adult Adele becomes fearful almost from the very beginning, and it's a fear that materializes and gets to its peak when a doppelganger family shows up at their summer home to terrorize them. The family that's doing the terrorizing looks just like them, consistent with Peele's interest in duality in human beings. So think of this in terms of the current conversations about racism, that racism is also a pandemic, just like coronavirus, and both are currently affecting significant portions of the United States. If horror films are a site where, as Alison Landsberg says, and I'm quoting here, visions of insanity take shape, murderous affairs continually supersede one another, forms of torture are described in great detail when it comes to horror, then this film can be interpreted as working to confront and awaken people to the dominant ideologies that appear invisible, natural, normalized, but nevertheless govern their lives. There are some specific examples of horror ideologies surfacing in Peele's film. There's horror in discovering people who appear to be exact duplicates of ourselves, yet they contradict our purported and highest ideals, and identities. This ties into ideas about the other. The other would be people who are inherently, at least in our belief system, opposed to ourselves, outside of our own race, class, and our normalized social world. There is also horror in understanding that evil and danger can exist in the most idyllic of situations and in the lives of ordinary middle-class people. Finally, in terms of horror, there is horror in knowing that undersides of our nature are routinely buried and hidden and not acknowledged. Duality is seen throughout the film in a variety of motifs. Consider the tethered family, almost exact duplicates that are linked to main characters. I'm mentioning them again because there's a quote that I think is important. As Henry Olfison says, "This doubling makes us think about ourselves and the roles we play in the world, and the idea of being faced with the self can create some of the most terrifying manifestations of thought and emotion." Another motif, scissors. They are the weapon, as opposed to a knife or sword, which might be seen in an ordinary horror film. These everyday, mundane items can cut and kill. Peele said in an interview, "There is a duality to scissors, both literally and physically. They are a whole made up of two parts, but they also lie in this territory between the mundane and the absolutely terrifying." Consider the mask, the symbolism of the son wearing it throughout the film. It's always with him, and he can easily pull it on and off at various times. Another example appears early in the film in the Hall of Mirrors as young Adelaide enters the amusement park. It again suggests dual natures that can exist in close relationship with each other. In terms of race more directly, Marcel Haddix sees meanings lying in conversations within American communities. These conversations are about words spoken, questions asked, and the context and assumptions behind all of these conversations. For example, when Haddix presents her theory of the tethered people, she says it is, quote, metaphorical for the real lived experiences of members of society who were forgotten and ignored, whose lives seem not to matter, narratives necessary to challenge the constant dominant discourse and the mistelling of those lived experiences. You can see this difference in the husbands of each family, the white family and the black family. They both work for the same company, but there are real subtle differences that come out in how they understand their material well-being. Black Gabe Wilson and white Josh Tyler have the exact same job, but Gabe's boat is much smaller. Their homes are also different, with the white Tyler summer home much more lavish and much larger. The underground tethered people have their own language of sounds, their own verbal articulations that they use to their advantage to communicate and subvert power, as noticed by Olfison. The use of rabbits. Haddix calls the rabbits food for the tethered, eaten raw. The rabbits multiply to be sacrificed, but their sacrifice does not necessarily result in more power for them. In fact, as long as there are no structural changes to the relationship between the tethered and the rabbits, there can be no change. The question again arises about concepts of worth, of who feeds off who appropriates what in relationships of the dominant and the marginalized. I will end this with a few observations about what is also normalized in us, and that would be Black cultural references. Black culture can be seen in the Howard University t-shirt that Gabe frequently wears. Howard is a historically Black institution and very important among many members of different Black communities. It is also seen in the reversal of a longtime trope that the Black character always dies first. In this case, a whole entire white family is killed off, which challenges these assumptions about ideological worth and the replication of these assumptions. A third example comes when husband Gabe speaks when Addie leaves the apparent safety of the family car. She goes out to chase down a doppelganger. He says, "Your mom left the car?" It ties into a narrative of how blacks and whites believe they might react differently in horror films. Cinema, music, and other forms of storytelling arts hold privileged positions among marginalized people. Please enjoy the movie.